Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wyatt Sharp Show podcast. Today, Minister Monte McNaughton, the Ontario Labour Minister, is joining me. Minister, thank you, and we're going to get started right away. So, Minister, you're pretty well known for wanting to get more students involved in these skilled trades. So, you said, and I quote, "I want kids to know there are 144 different trades to choose from, and you can make six figures, earn a pension, and get benefits from the majority of them. And in many cases, you can be your own boss." Why are you so passionate about getting students and children from across Canada involved in the trades?
Well, thanks, Wyatt, and it's really great to be on your show today. I'm proud of all the work that you're doing as well. Look, I think there's great opportunities in the trades for young people. I want young people to know that, they don't always have to go to university. There's other options out there. And there are 144 different trades to choose from. It's amazing when I talk to many young people, they'll say to me, I know to become a teacher, I know to become a lawyer, but they'll say to me, I have no idea how to become a carpenter or an electrician. So these are really exciting, meaningful careers. They provide for better families and make our communities stronger. And just on a personal note, Wyatt, I tried my hand at the skilled trades this summer. My daughter and I, along with our neighbor, who's a journey person in the skilled trades, built a tree fort. So we're having a lot of fun playing in our tree fort, and it's a rewarding thing when you get to look at something that you've built and you can be proud of it.
Okay, and so you've also said that you are confident that skilled trade workers will ultimately be the ones who lead to Ontario's economic recovery from COVID-19. Why do you feel this way?
Well, it's an exciting time to be in the skilled trades. That's why I keep telling young people and all people about these amazing opportunities that are in front of them and that are out there in every community right across the province. I believe that the skilled trades will lead the economic recovery in Ontario coming out of the pandemic. If you just think of all the things that Premier Ford is talking about building, I mean, the largest expansion of broadband high-speed internet in Ontario history, expansion of natural gas lines, more transit projects, more bridges and roads. I mean, all kinds of things need to be built. That's why we need more people in the skilled trades.
Okay, so you have said that you want the younger generation to realize that there's as much merit as being an electrician or elevator mechanic as there is in being a teacher, which you kind of just mentioned. But why did you say that? And to maybe people who are watching that want to be teachers, what's wrong with being a teacher?
Well, absolutely nothing. My point is that we want people to know that there are exciting careers out there in the skilled trades. A couple of things that we're going to be doing, we're going to be introducing the skilled trades as early as grade one. And we're also going to be sending in recruiters to high schools to talk to high school students about getting into the skilled trades. And I just want to show you why. This is one thing I just got given to me. It's a project book called Woodshop, and they're projects for young kids and their parents to do together. And I know that's something my daughter Annie and I are going to be doing in the time ahead. So these are great careers. They're meaningful. They pay well. You mentioned an elevator mechanic. I bet there's a lot of people out there that don't know that the average wage of an elevator mechanic is about $108,000 per year. So that's the mission we're on, is to talk about these opportunities and hope that we can spread across the province.
Okay, and so obviously all the stuff we just talked about is very important, but a lot of the mainstream media and a lot of the talk right now is related to the COVID-19 pandemic. So again, we've talked about the idea of getting more students involved in the skilled trades, but now I want to talk about COVID-19. Many Ontarians are asking when the lockdown can be ended. So my question to you is, when does the government of Ontario, what is kind of the benchmark to where Ontarians will start to see lifting of the different lockdown measures?
Well, we're certainly heading in the right direction. I mean, thanks to the people of Ontario. I mean, everyone has sacrificed so much during this entire pandemic. It's hard to believe, we've been in this 10 or 11 months now. Certainly, the numbers are going in the right direction. The cases are going down. I can't tell you exactly when the lockdown is going to be open. But the good news is, with one aspect, of the lockdown that's going to be lifted, and that's around the school situation. I know on Monday, for example, 280,000 more students are going to be back in the classroom. That's great news for young people, but great news for parents as well. And that means that schools are reopening and we're heading in the right direction. Again, I just urge everyone, stay home if you can, stay safe. That's how we're going to save lives and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Okay, the Premier, Doug Ford, has been very outspoken about the fact that the federal Liberal government and the provincial Progressive Conservative government can work together, even though they are from different political parties. Would you agree with your leader and the Premier? And if so, or if not, why?
I agree with them 100%. I mean, I just think in my ministry, the Ministry of Labor, Training and Skills Development, one area where we really partnered well together comes around labor laws and keeping people safe on the job. So, for example, the very first measure that I took and our government took when the pandemic hit Ontario, we introduced job protected leave. So if you're a worker, you need to stay home because of COVID-19. If you're in self-isolation, in quarantine, you're a mom or a dad who has to stay home and look after a son or a daughter because the schools are closed, you can't be fired for that in Ontario. We were the first place in North America to introduce this type of legislation. Furthermore, I eliminated the need for sick notes, so you don't have to go to your doctor to get a sick note. I worked with the federal government, and the Prime Minister and the Premier signed an agreement for the federal government to provide 2 weeks of paid sick days for people who are staying home. So that's an example of how we can work together. And we're lucky we're here in Canada. It's one of the great things about being Canadian is that we can work together.
Okay, and so the provincial NDP, the opposition of Ontario, is calling for even more paid sick day measures to be implemented. They're saying that Ontarians can't go to work with COVID, and obviously that's true. But what would you say to the Ontario NDP when they're asking for more sick days? Because obviously the government of Ontario doesn't agree with them, or maybe they do agree with him, but it's not just as easy as something and saying we're going to do this. You have to think about the money that's going to be implemented with it. So what would you say to Andrea Horvath as well as several NDP MPPs?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we're not going to duplicate government programs. As I said, we stepped in to protect jobs. That was a responsibility of all provinces across Canada to bring in job protected leave. And we partnered with the federal government. I mean, because of the advocacy of Premier Ford and his partnership with Prime Minister Trudeau, there are 2 weeks of paid sick days available, $500 per week for workers across this province. Furthermore, and I think it's important that every provincial elected official, federally as well and municipally, they need to let constituents and the people know that these programs are out there. One program that hasn't been talked about much, but it's really important for moms and dads out there. If you're a parent staying home with a son or daughter because the schools are closed, you're actually eligible for up to $500 per week for 26 weeks through the federal government. So I would urge, even official opposition members, I would urge them to tell the public about these programs because they're available for the working people of this province.
Okay, and so just a couple weeks ago, Doug Ford expelled the MPP for York Centre, Roman Baber, from the PC caucus after Roman Baber wrote a letter to Premier Ford basically saying that the lockdowns are outweighing the impacts of COVID-19. So what would you say to people that say that Doug Ford removing Roman Baber from the caucus was a move that went too far and that Roman Baber should be free to express his own beliefs?
Well, look, I think it's important to recognize the seriousness of COVID-19. I mean, clearly Ontario has done better than most other jurisdictions around North America. And it's because I believe as a government, has prioritized the health and well-being of all the people. Look, Roman Baber is a friend of mine. I've known him. I've been honored to serve with him for a couple of years. But look, the government's made a decision here, and that is to protect the health and well-being of the people. COVID-19 has been unfair to so many people. In fact, not just to the people here in Ontario, but everybody around the world. And our approach is working. It's been tough. I agree, but it is working. And if we all keep going in the same direction, keep working together, then we're going to defeat this. And we've already seen the benefit of our actions. The numbers are going down, schools are reopening, and soon I expect that businesses will be reopening as well.
Okay, and so many Ontarians are struggling with their mental health throughout COVID-19, and business owners are struggling to keep their business open. So, what is the government of Ontario doing to help this issue and ensure that small businesses can keep their doors open?
Yeah, I come from a small business background myself. Our family and I were in business together. I feel for the small businesses across the province. I always urge the people that I represent in Lambton, Kent, Middlesex, and everybody across the province, go support a local business. I mean, do the curbside pickup, get something delivered by them, choose them over the big corporations. I think we all have a responsibility to support a small business. Again, we just need to get through this, this period where we've closed down parts of our economy. And again, we're moving in the right direction. Schools are reopening. Businesses, I'm confident if these numbers keep going down, are going to reopen soon as well. There'll be a staged approach, of course. When it comes to mental health, I mean, this is great because we just had Bell Let's Talk Day to raise awareness of mental health issues in our own communities. We all have to look out for each other, have each other's backs. I know in our ministry and in my constituency offices, we always talk about how we have to keep an eye for each other to see how everyone's coping on a daily basis. These have been unprecedented times, truly challenging for families and small business owners. But we just have to keep focused at that light at the end of the tunnel, because we are going to get there and we're going to defeat COVID-19.
Okay, and so many regions across the province of Ontario are saying that it's not fair that they're put under the same restrictions as, let's say, a region like Toronto. For example, I'm from Durham region, and obviously the cases aren't as high as Durham or in Durham as they are in Toronto. But what would you say to someone that is saying that, we should be going by a more regional approach, and that, Durham and Halton and Hamilton should not be held to the same standards as places like Toronto, Windsor, Peel, York?
Yeah, look, I've always supported a regional approach. In fact, the Premier and the government has been taking a regional approach throughout the majority of this pandemic. Of course, during this lockdown period, that was province-wide, although there was an exception for Northern Ontario to reopen sooner. But I can speak, this year has been particularly different, even in my riding, which is largely rural. I mean, made up of 100 towns and villages and hamlets. I mean, there was COVID almost in every single community, and that was different during the second wave than in the first wave. So I've supported the government's approach. I like the regional approach as well, and we're taking that approach to opening schools. I mean, we're looking at those public health units where schools can be reopened, and that's how we're gradually reopening the school system.
Okay, and so we're going to go back to a bit of talking about the skilled trades here for a minute. So you've been passionate about getting more kids involved in the trades, but what about the idea of getting more kids involved in politics and civic engagement?
I'm like you, Wyatt. I got interested in politics in grade 6, which was, I was probably the only one in my class at that point that followed politics. I watched the news religiously. I read all kinds of books. I think when I was in grade 6, Ronald Reagan was the president of the United States, and probably why I'm a conservative today. I support, more discussion about politics. I learned a lot about politics around the kitchen table. But it's important for those discussions in the classroom to happen. And I also think, when we get back to normal, I know I always, do as much as possible, getting into classrooms in my own local riding and constituents to talk to students in young classes.
Okay, and so why did you get involved in politics, and specifically, what is it like to serve as Minister of Labour and serve the people of Ontario?
Well, there's not a truly better feeling than serving people. That's why I got into politics, because I like to serve people. My grandfather, whom I never met, he died a number of years before I was born, but I read a story about him and heard stories about him. I was born and raised in a small village, Newbury, Ontario, population 402 people. And my grandfather founded a local hospital. Over 50 years later, that hospital is still serving the people of my hometown and our area. And it was reading about his selfless service to the community. He literally spent 15 or 20 years getting this hospital built. And it was reading about him that inspired me at a very, very young age to get into politics.
Okay, so your government's approval rating has went up tremendously in the midst of the COVID pandemic. According to 338 Canada, as of December the 10th of 2020, it says if an election were held today, your party would win 90 seats to the second place NDP's 22, to the third place Liberals 13. Why do you think this is?
Well, look, as many politicians say, the only poll that counts is the one on election day. And I can tell you, we're not looking at the poll numbers. This is about just everyone working together to get through this pandemic. Premier Ford, I can tell you his word is his bond. When he tells you something, he sticks to it. As well, he's very hands-on. So he's been very engaged in ensuring. I remember back in the beginning of this where we didn't have PPE in Ontario. I mean, he was working the phone 24/7 to ensure that healthcare workers had proper PPE and others had it. And even more recently, I mean, it's the prime minister, or sorry, it's the premier who's stepping up and calling the CEO of Pfizer to make sure we get vaccinations here in Ontario, where the Prime Minister is supposed to be responsible for this. When it comes to border security, it's Premier Ford that's leading the way on testing and calling on borders to be closed earlier on in the pandemic. So it's his leadership, it's his authenticity, it's taking questions every single day at his 1 o'clock press conferences. He's like working every day, and I think people have rallied around him.
Okay, so why should the people, as our final question today, why should the people of your riding in Lambton, Kent, and Middlesex vote for you again in the next provincial election?
Well, I'm here for them. My constituency staff do a great job. I have an open door policy. I always take the best ideas from my riding, from the people here, and I try to take those to Queen's Park. And I know prior to the pandemic, and once the pandemic's over, I start every day in a local coffee shop to hear those good ideas, and I always commit to people and try to demonstrate to them that I'm taking what I hear at home at a Queen's Park and make a difference in their lives.
Okay, thank you very much, Minister McNaughton, for joining me on the podcast today.
Well, thanks, Wyatt. I have to tell you, you have a great career in front of you.
Thank you.